Hey, welcome to the channel. If you like stories where humanity refuses to kneel, subscribe and stay with us. Let's begin. In the vast silence of the cosmos where stars whisper secrets to the void, the Galactic Concordance laughed at humanity. They called us fragile apes, clinging to our blue marble like infants to a teat. Look at them, the overlords sneered from their crystal thrones, needing that thick soup of air just to breathe. One thin atmosphere, and they crumple like wet parchment. But on the shattered world of Epsilon Eridani Thurfor, where the air hung like a blade, thin, cold, unyielding, the truth clawed its way out. This is the story of oxygen debt, where aliens watched in horror as humans ran until their lungs bled. The invasion hit like a thunderclap from a clear sky. The Zithari Empire, sleek chitin-armored conquerors with lungs engineered for vacuum's edge, descended upon our colony with the arrogance of gods. Their ships blotted out the twin suns, casting long shadows over the jagged peaks of Eridani's highlands. "Surrender your world," their broadcast echoed in 1,000 tongues, "or suffocate in its frailty." Commander Vexillar, his mandibles clicking in amusement, monitored the feeds from his command spire. Humans, he knew, were bound by biology. Oxygen hogs needing 20% saturation to function. Eridani's air was a meager 12%, thinning further at altitude. "They'll gasp and fall before our boots touch soil," he chittered to his aides. "No need for plasma. The planet will kill them for us." Below, in the dust-choked bunkers, Captain Elias Thorne stared at the holomap, his face a mask of scarred resolve. Thorne wasn't a hero by birthright. War had forged him. Lost limbs regrown, eyes sharpened by augments, but his spirit was pure, unyielding human grit. "We hold the line," he growled to his squad. A ragtag mix of colonists and reluctant allies from the fringe worlds. Kale, the wiry fellid scout, bristled at human stupidity, his fur standing on end. "Mira!" A bioluminescent core from the neutral zones twitched her tentacles in doubt. "You push too far, Thorne," she pulsed, her glow dimming. "Your kind will choke up there." Thorne said nothing, his silence heavier than words. He pointed to the map where red blips marked Zithari drop zones in the highlands. The air was thinnest there, a death sentence for most species. But Thorne saw something else, a choke point, a chance. "We climb," he said. "We hit them where they think we're weak." The squad moved at dusk, scaling cliffs under a sky bruised purple. The air burned their lungs, each breath a knife. Kale hissed, his feline grace faltering as he coughed. Mira's glow flickered, her biology struggling. Only the humans kept pace, faces grim, blood flecking their lips. Thorne led, his chest heaving, ignoring the copper taste in his mouth. They reached the ridge just as Zithari drones swept in, their scanners blind to the humans' impossible ascent. Vexillar watched the skirmish unfold, his amusement curdling. Human squads, ragged and bleeding, struck from the cliffs with crude kinetics. Bullets, not plasma. The drones shattered, their wreckage raining down. "Impossible," Vexillar hissed. "Their lungs should be pulp." His aides chittered nervously. The math didn't add up. Humans were dying up there. Yet they fought on, screaming defiance through bloodied teeth. Thorne's squad took the ridge, but at a cost. 2 humans lay still, their chests no longer rising. Kale snarled, "This is madness. You kill yourselves for nothing." Thorne knelt by the fallen, closing their eyes. "Not for nothing," he said, voice low. "For time." He pointed to the horizon where Zithari landers were slowing, confused by the resistance. Mira pulsed faintly, her doubt shifting to something else. Fear, perhaps, or awe. Vexillar slammed a claw on his console. "Send the harvesters," he ordered. These were no drones but bioengineered horrors, designed to rip through flesh and bone. Their carapaces gleamed under the twin suns, mandibles dripping with paralytic venom. "Crush them," he snarled, "before their madness spreads." Thorne saw the harvesters coming, their shadows swallowing the ridge. His squad was battered, oxygen-starved, bleeding from the climb. Yet he stood, rifle in hand, eyes burning with something the aliens couldn't name. "Hold," he whispered. The squad braced, human and alien alike, as the ground shook beneath the Harvester's charge. But in the silence before the clash, a signal pinged on Thorne's wrist. A faint, encrypted burst from orbit. Reinforcements, betrayal, or something worse. The Harvesters charged, a tidal wave of claws and teeth crashing over the ridge. Their carapaces gleamed like oil under Epsilon Eridani's twin suns, mandibles dripping with paralytic venom. Each beast was a nightmare of bioengineering, designed to shred flesh and bone in seconds. The ground shook as they surged, their screeches splitting the thin air. Captain Elias Thorne's squad fired into the swarm, bullets sparking off armored hides. The air was a razor now, each breath tearing at their lungs, blood flecking lips and pooling in throats. Kale, the Phalid scout, leapt with feline grace, claws raking a Harvester's flank, but a whipping tail caught him mid-air, sending him crashing into the rocks, blood matting his fur. Mira, the core ally, unleashed a bioelectric pulse, frying one beast in a shower of sparks, but her luminescent glow flickered. She was fading, her biology unfit for this oxygen-starved hell. Thorne fought at the front, his vision blurring, blood dripping from his nose. Every human was the same, coughing red, chests heaving yet standing. Their rifles roared, kinetics punching through Harvester joints where plasma would have glanced off. Thorne's squad was a battered mix. Humans, Kale, Mira, and a handful of fringe-worlders who'd joined out of necessity, not trust. The aliens in the group faltered, their bodies rebelling against the altitude. But the humans, they burned through the pain, their frail biology somehow turning agony into fuel. In the Zethari command spire, Commander Vexillar's mandibles twitched with rage. They should be dead. He roared, his voice echoing off crystalline walls. Hollow screens flickered, showing humans fighting atop a corpse pile of Harvesters, their faces smeared with blood and dust. Thorne stood at the center, firing until his rifle clicked empty, then swinging it like a club, shattering a Harvester's mandible. Vexillar's aides chittered nervously, whispering of myths, tales of humans running until their hearts burst, yet still swinging. "Impossible," Vexillar hissed, his claws gouging the console. Their lungs should be pulp. Their blood should boil. But the screens told a different story. Humans weren't just surviving. They were adapting, defying every biological limit the Zethari knew. Back on the ridge, a new signal crackled through Thorne's wrist comm, sharp and urgent. It wasn't human. The encrypted burst came from orbit, its signature core, Mira's kin. A defector in the coalition had sold them out, trading Eridani for neutrality with the Zethari. Guil, dragging himself up, blood dripping from a gash across his ribs, snarled, "Traitors." His yellow eyes locked on Mira, who pulsed dimly, her tentacles trembling. She didn't meet his gaze. Thorne's face didn't change. "Doesn't change the plan," he said, voice like gravel scraped raw. He pulled a detonator from his belt, wired to charges set in the cliffs during their ascent. "We bring the mountain down." The squad moved, dragging wounded through the chaos. Harvesters pressed harder, sensing weakness, their claws tearing through rock and metal. Thorne led the way, planting the final charge under a hail of venomous spines. A human colonist fell, paralyzed, eyes wide with terror as a Harvester loomed. Thorne hauled him back, firing one-handed, his own blood mixing with the dust. Mira, barely glowing, grabbed his arm. "Why?" she whispered, her voice a faint pulse. "Why do you keep going when it hurts like this?" Thorne's answer was a glance, fierce and unyielding. "Because we can." They reached the last charge point, a narrow ledge overlooking the Zethari advance. The Harvesters were relentless, their numbers swelling as more poured from drop pods below. Thorne's squad was down to a dozen, half coughing blood, the other half barely standing. Kale hissed, his strength fading. "This is suicide," he spat. Thorn ignored him, wiring the detonator. The math was clear: sacrifice for survival. The cliffs could bury the harvesters, slow the invasion, buy time for the colony. But it would cost them. The detonation shook the planet, a roar that drowned out the screeches. Cliffs collapsed in a cascade of rock and dust, swallowing harvesters in a tomb of stone. The squad barely escaped, crawling through choking clouds, their lungs screaming. Thorn dragged Mira, her glow nearly gone, while Kale limped behind, cursing. The ridge was gone. The Zathari advance stalled, but the cost was etched in the bodies left behind, human and alien alike. In the spire, Vexillar's feeds went dark, his screens buried in static. He turned to his aides, mandibles quivering. "What are they?" he whispered, dread creeping into his voice. The humans were bleeding, broken, but alive. And they were coming. His empire had mocked them as primitives, but now the math was failing. The Zathari had calculated victory. They hadn't calculated madness. Thorn's squad stumbled into a shallow cave, the air barely breathable. He coughed, blood splattering the rock, but his eyes scanned the sky. Orbit lit up with new signatures, not human, not Zathari. The core fleet, betrayers unveiled, descended like vultures, their ships sleek and predatory. Mira's tentacles curled in shame, her glow extinguished. Kyle growled, ready to lunge at her, but Thorn raised a hand. "Save it," he said, voice barely a whisper. He checked his rifle. 3 rounds left. The squad was a handful now, faces gaunt, eyes burning with something the aliens couldn't name. Thorn stood, silhouetted against the twin suns as core ships cast shadows over the rubble. The Zathari were regrouping below, their harvesters clawing free of the debris. The squad was trapped, outnumbered, oxygen-starved. Yet Thorn smiled, a predator's grin, blood staining his teeth. "They think we're done," he said, his voice carrying a quiet, terrifying certainty. "They're wrong." The galaxy watched, holding its breath. The core ships closed in, weapons charging with an ominous hum. A new shadow loomed. Not ship, but something ancient stirring in the planet's depths, woken by the chaos. Its presence pulsed through the ground, a low, bone-deep thrum that froze human and alien alike. Thorn's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening on the detonator's trigger. Something was coming, and it wasn't on anyone's side.